Heroes 2 is a game with 5 distinct factions, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. Today, we're going to be focusing on one opening strategy that might have more failure than it does success. With me detailing this strategy is the man, the myth, the legend, Greyshot117.
Hello everyone, and I am so grateful 151 has finally given the opportunity to show how good, how amazing the scout car opening can be. Isn't that right, 151?
Yes, we're going to take a dive into this scout car opening and see if it's a tale of insanity or, a legit opening for Company of Heroes 2. But before we dive into the actual build itself, I think we should go over the strengths, weaknesses, and general vibe you're going to get from this build. So 117, why don't you detail why you enjoy this opening first and foremost?
First, its ability to effectively counter a lot of support equipment spam. A lot of austere players recently have been deploying just numerous amounts of either MGs or MG mortar combinations to really lock down their side in hopes that the allies just won't be able to penetrate, anywhere near the fuel or whatever they're guarding. The scout car throws a wrinkle at it because without a grenadier to Panzerfaust, or even with one single grenadier, you can outmaneuver it, neutralize the support equipment to a person who isn't paying that much attention or is unexpectedly at awe at such a fast-moving unit moving through their lines, and cause a havoc. As well as with penals, they typically can do better in open combat versus grenadiers, Volk squads, which is primary combatant of that the Germans will throw at you. So compared to a conscript, it's a better unit overall, and with its satchel can easily destroy bunkers and other emplacements the Germans can possibly set down.
No, very good overview. I would tend to agree with that assessment. It is best against support equipment, against the austere, and against the OKW, it is best against most of their infantry, so long as it's not grouped up. The AT snare is really where this opening falls apart. If you're facing Panzer Fusiliers with the OKW, or a lot of Volk with the enemy. Getting too close can have catastrophic results, but excellent movement with the scout car and the ability to gradually wear down the enemy, especially with the penal in the back, or near squad and quickly rushing down enemy grenadiers with a penal and scout car, I think is the best opening opportunity this doctrine/build has. So with the strengths and weaknesses described, which faction would you best say complements this opening?
Well, I would recommend a perfect complement being a faction that can bring up its own support equipment. The lacking part of this build is no MGs, no early AT, nothing along those lines. So a Brit who can deploy a Vickers and an early AT gun would be suitable. An American with a mortar would also be preferable, especially if they can bring up an ambulance for early healing. Or even another Soviet who goes special weapons and brings up MGs and AT guns and mortars to support you. However, a playstyle that relies solely on infantry, such as a full rifleman build or a full infantry section build, if they can throw you off, you essentially have very little to defend your lines.
Yeah, they really can reach a critical mass point where, let's say, if the enemy has like 3 mortars and 3 machine guns, it doesn't matter how versatile that scout car is or the infantry is, you're just going to get worn down. But now that we've discussed the strengths and weaknesses and general playstyle of this opening, let us dive into the actual build itself. So, to start off with, you want to go with a tier 1 building by the starting engineer that you have. Once the engineer builds the tier 1 building, you want to get a penal out. Once this penal is out and running to the front line, the next thing you want to do is get the scout car. Now, after the scout car is built, you want to get 2 penals. This is a very expensive, you'll need 600 manpower, so the scout car really helps minimize the manpower usage early on. 117, you may note that the base medic upgrade is recommended. Can you explain why?
Well, usually after deploying, I would say about 3 penals. That should be a fair amount of frontline infantry. At that point, most likely you're going to be in a battle in which you're going to have to send the penals back to base. Sure, if you have an American with an ambulance, that's wonderful, but you're probably going to be in a scenario where if forced by suppression, a random mortar hit, whatever the case may be, you may find yourself retreating a unit. In that case, the medic will bring them back up to full health. Whereas if we talk with the Wehrmacht or the OKW, both of those factions take a little bit longer before their medical facilities become operational, whether through a bunker with the Wehrmacht or a medical position, typical building with the OKW. Sure, the OKW could also use medics with CERM, but they're probably going to try to rely more on upgrading to better weapons rather than trying to throw down a rather expensive medical box.
Makes perfect sense. So yeah, making sure your penals are fighting at their best is definitely a necessity. Next, you want to move on to the tier 2 building, and depending on what your ally has brought to the front line, I would recommend an AT gun and or an MG. The MG is great on the offense to push or to hold a flank, as your penals are going to be a much more mobile infantry, and having a static MG will help shore up and have a defensive line in case you have to fall back. Afterward, you want to move on to the tier 3 building. Acquire a half track. This will allow your penals to reinforce the front line and heal them up to full health if you put them inside the half track. And then afterward, move on to your tier 4 building, where you can acquire the tank and or Katyusha that you need. If you're facing a lot of infantry and you've controlled the fuel for the entire game, a Katyusha is definitely recommended, whereas a Su-85 is more so a necessity if you're facing heavier armor later in the game. One major thing from this point onward is a stress that you do not want to upgrade your penals with the PTRS upgrade unless you are absolutely dominating the enemy. And I'm talking every single star, both fuels, and you have wiped numerous units. 1171 detail as to why that's the case?
As much as I like the PTRS rifles in terms of dealing damage to armor, for the predominant portion of this game, you're going to be dealing with infantry, and that's the main role of these penals. Sure, you can destroy enemy emplacements and enemy fortifications with its satchel charge, that's great, but once you give them those PTRS rifles, even with the recent patch that made them slightly better, your best line of defense against armor would be getting another form of AT, such as an Su-85 or AT gun, or possibly guard troops that can get their DPs that can button armored units.
Exactly. The only units that really can maximize the PTRS rifle are guards, because they don't suffer a penalty like the penals do. The penals suffer a massive, as well as conscripts, massive penalty when they are upgraded to the PTRS rifle, meaning that your anti-infantry capability is not like rendered by like a percentage, it's rendered by like half, it feels like. So you are really sacrificing a lot of potential on the offense for a minor increase against anti-tank. Do not get the PTRS upgrade, and even if you do, at max 1 unit. Do not do so for your all of your units. It's a wasted upgrade. Recommend just killing a whole bunch of grenadiers and picking up their MG42s if at all possible. Those will definitely be a better upgrade.
But they're still very effective no matter which role you put a penal in.
Well, here, that is the penal opening brought to you by Greyshot117. I want to thank him for stopping by to give us this opening. Let us know how you enjoy it. I'll definitely be supplying my own footage to supplement this video, so hopefully there'll be plenty of wins you guys can see. But otherwise, I am Greyshot151. I have been honored by 117, and I will see you all next time with hopefully how to open with the British. I'm still working on it. It's going to be coming out. I just am trying to find the optimum build.
And remember, enemy snipers cannot outrun your scout cars, so just putting that out there in case that becomes an issue.
Good tip, 117. Good tip. In any case, I'm Greyshot151, and I will see you all next time.
Later. Hey guys, before you go, I want to give a special shout out to Patreon supporters Folkvard, Aphyria, Joey G240, Ace, ShinobiWarrior, Pyroshark, Little Koosh, and Seth Kuipers. Thank you all for your incredible support. You guys rock. This has been Greyshot17 and his amazing patrons, and I'll see all of you next time.